Right.
Is it going?
Okay, we're good.
Okay. I'm going to provide a brief synopsis of the case. So this was about NHL, National Hockey League, and the Union of National Hockey League Players Association. So there was a fight. Essentially, they were not making enough money. Players were not, in a way, and the NHL didn't want to pay them anymore. And so they came to a kind of a standstill in their agreement. And eventually it made it so that they actually couldn't play the season until they finished making the agreement. One group wanted, like capped pay, like the NHL wanted to have the players have a capped pay, and the National Hockey League, NHLPA, I don't know how to say that quicker, but they didn't want to deal with any of that stuff. So it was a giant fight. What do you guys think is the root cause of the problems identified in the case? Any?
I think the owners, so the league, they always want to, from an outside perspective, it almost always looks like it's money. The players don't want the salary cap. The owners do want the salary cap so that they have more money. They want to cut costs. Players care less, really, because hockey, sometimes you get hockey contracts that are like 15 years long. Like hockey will sign long contracts. And so they wanted their salaries to just be the max, where the owners wanted to start putting caps on it so that they could be saving money. So it's basically like they wanted money, and who could win out.
Right. Cool. Does anybody know what a BATNA is? A BATNA? All caps.
I just said that it was like the next best alternative for them to go, because basically both parties were in a standstill, and in order for them to negotiate, they were not going to get exactly what they originally intended.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the next best alternative for them to pick.
Good call. Is it possible to change another person's ZOPA or the ZOPA, their zone of preferred agreement or something like that? Does anybody remember what a ZOPA is? If not, I do.
ZOPA is where two parties are willing to come to this middle ground of an agreement. And I don't think you can, that's like changing somebody's mind if you change their ZOPA. So I think you can be persuasive and kind and be persuading, but you cannot force somebody to change it.
Cool. If we were the National Hockey League Players Association, what would we do to resolve this situation? What do you guys think would be a good choice or a good deal to make so that we could end the lockout?
I think you need to it's almost like mind games. So I feel like if you play the mind game, like, Phil, I really care about you and your interests, even though you probably don't give a hoot, even if you make it seem like you care, and then, you're going to be like, that Josh is a real swell guy. And then the owners are going to be more likely to negotiate with the players because they're going to think, oh, well, they kind of see where we're coming from now. And so then people are able to come together. So I feel like even if you don't genuinely care, at least make it seem like you care, because in the mental games aspect of it, the other side will be like, oh, well, they're kind of starting to see what we're coming from, because they probably feel like they're not understood. The players feel like they're not understood. And so then it's never going to work out.
Right. Instead of just standing in separate corners yelling no at each other. Try to make something work. Okay, if we were part of the NHL, what would we do to resolve the situation? Sorry.
Well, I just think they've got to understand that the players that they're paying brings in the people. Like, that's great, you want to cut costs, but I'm like, you're cutting costs, but you're going to cut revenue, because those people that are getting paid more are not going to want to pay costs, so you're going to lose those players. It's just going to be a ripple effect. So they've got to be careful where they're stepping on toes, because they can really destroy the league.
Right. Right. And I was going to say the same thing. You can't. If you've got a person who, essentially Wayne Gretzky was one of the top players at the time, and if you kind of piss him off, he's not going to play that well, or he's going to leave. And a lot of people would just watch to watch Wayne Gretzky. What gospel concepts are pertinent in this case? I didn't even think about linking the gospel in this case.
Well, I think that an obvious one would be that, like, like the Savior, that how he just kind of like resolved problems. He helped people. I wouldn't say he was one who was contentious, and I felt like both of those parties were like really contentious, and they were just really kind of like so focused on getting their own way. Like they weren't even like open to anybody else's point of view. And so I feel like if we emulate the attributes of the Savior, as we humble ourselves, as we are patient, especially like when we're in a disagreement with somebody, like a spouse or a teacher or somebody in your family, like as long as you like try to like see their side, even if you don't agree with it, like that's like where progress like will start happening as you humble yourself and follow his example, I believe.
Good call. I was going to comment on the other side of that, and like our ZOPA, like our agreement zone. Like we can't allow Satan to shift us out of our agreement zones. Like obviously the stuff that our Savior wants us to do and be like is our ZOPA, like our comfort area. And if Satan tries to get us to shift that, we shouldn't allow that to happen. So good call. Was there any concepts from this week's reading that pertain to this case that anybody remembers? If so, what?
We didn't have a reading assignment this week other than the case.
That makes sense.
So I think it all relates since the discussion board is going to be about the case.
Awesome. Does anybody know what happened after this story?
I'm pretty sure they had a shortened season because it did go into the season. I can't remember how long.
Shortened season.
Yeah. Because, I mean, once you come into the shortened season, then it kind of just puts everyone in a vice grip of like, I'm not getting paid for playing. You're not getting paid for sitting in your owner's box. And then people start to see, like, oh, maybe we should just like figure something out.
Figure it out.
And to me, it seemed like that this was like a reoccurring problem just because it gave the other scenarios in the case, like 1992 and 96.
Right.
There was like 5 different ones, and I didn't realize that,
Like
because I don't follow hockey, but like obviously there's kind of like a reoccurring problem here with money and with costs and people's attitudes.
Yeah, we should probably fix that. Awesome. That's pretty much it. That was short and sweet. I don't even know how long it was.
6 minutes.
6 minutes. Well, thanks everybody for coming. And that was it.
Like or subscribe.